Taiwan. Mark, how are you?
Good, thanks. And you, Mike?
How's the weather in Taiwan?
It's wet and rainy.
Wet. Okay. Everyone's excited to learn about the birds of Taiwan. So if you're ready, we can start right now.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Thank you, Mike.
Yeah.
All right. Good evening, everyone. I'm going to be speaking to you about birding in Taiwan this evening. And basically, I'm a birder. I'm not a tour guide. I'm a South African, and I've lived in Taiwan for 18 years. I'm a university lecturer, and I'm a wildlife documentary screenwriter and producer. So in the past, we've had a number of sessions with the ABF, and my talk will be slightly different because I'm coming from the point of view of just a birder. I'm not a tour operator or anything like that. So I'll be speaking about birding in Taiwan, but it won't be purely from the bird tour perspective. It will also just be some general birding, and also for individuals that also might just want to come out and do birding by themselves. All right. As I said, I'm a documentary screenwriter and producer. Most of my work has been for National Geographic, and I enjoy telling stories about birds and my adopted home of Taiwan. These are just a few of my works, and as you can see, birds feature quite strongly in those pictures, but it's not only birds, I do wildlife. So just to give you a brief idea of some of the things that I do, I'm going to give you an example. I'll briefly play one of my trailers. This came from a film that I did 5 years ago called Terraced Fields Gongliao, which looked at the indigenous kind of rice culture in Taiwan. So I'm just going to play the trailer, and you'll see that even though it's the story of rice farmers, birds and other wildlife feature prominently in it. Okay, so that's just a brief example of the kind of work that I do. Now, I want you to think for a moment, how has birding shaped you and your life? I think for many of us here, birding is far, far more than just a hobby. It's in many ways kind of shaped our lives. Many of you derive your income from guiding or bird-related activities. For me, I guess, the telling of bird stories has provided me with much of my income. So birding is very, very important to us all. And I want you to keep that in mind when we go through this. All right. I'm going to start off with a little bit of an image. These are some words from Don Kreutzmer. One of my favorite images of our small, beautiful world is of morning's first light sweeping around the globe, continuously, relentlessly, forever circling and returning to repeat the cycle. Always, somewhere it is dawn, and always, somewhere the birds are singing. And that's wherever we go, the birds are with us. They're so much part of our lives. Now, let's take a look at Taiwan. All right, Taiwan, an island. All right, Taiwan is in East Asia, on the East Asian Pacific Rim. And when you think of Taiwan, generally we have this image of one of Asia's little dragons, developed high-tech computers, things like that. Kind of birds and wildlife don't really enter the picture for many people. But if we look at Taiwan, in some ways that's not surprising. Okay, the land area is 36,000 square kilometers. All right, and the population, about 23.5 million. If we look at the population density, quite high, 650 people per square kilometer. The capital city right up in the north, Taipei. But there's another side of Taiwan, and that reflects, I guess, in its alternate name, Ilha Formosa, the beautiful island. And Taiwan, apart from all the computers and high-rise buildings, also has tremendous diversity and beauty. All right, if we look at Taiwan, Taiwan's highest point is Yushan, 3,952 meters, has over 200 peaks higher than 3,000 meters, while it straddles the Tropic of Cancer. So if we look at Taiwan and we look at the classification of the climate in Taiwan, we can see that Taiwan varies from down in the southeast, from tropical rainforest all the way through to, in some places, tundra. So Taiwan has all these different climatic zones.
When you
range from
to the tribute, it's really nice.
Tropical coastline all the way through to alpine tundra. Okay, which gives rise to tremendously rich biodiversity. And from a birding perspective, looking after the birds, BirdLife International's partner is the Chinese Wild Bird Federation and all of their local chapters. In Taiwan, there are a number of government organizations that look after research, such as the Endemic Species Research Institute, and also academic institutions like National Junction University. All right, and out of this, there are a number of publications that come out, for instance, like the red lists and breeding bird surveys. And that couples with a lot of citizen science work. And there are a few projects here, Breeding Bird Survey, the MAPS project, the New Year Birds Counts, things like that. All right, now, when we think about Taiwan, why is Taiwan a good location to visit? Okay, first of all, Taiwan is compact. It's approximately 400 kilometers long, and at its widest point, I think it's 144 kilometers. So it's this really compact location, and it makes for a great introduction to Asian birding. Birds are accessible, and good numbers are easy to see. Taiwan is inexpensive, it's safe and friendly, it's easy to get around, it has beautiful scenery, vibrant culture, and great food. All right, Taiwan also has easy to get field guides. This is the English version, obviously the Chinese versions as well. So this specifically focuses on Taiwan. And we have a regional guide, which would be the Birds of East Asia, which includes Taiwan. All right, in Taiwan, you can buy other kind of like birding location guides, things like that. Here's an example of bird watching in Taiwan. Now, if we look at Taiwan, the official 2020 checklist lists 674 species. Remember that Taiwan is only, I think it's 396 by 144 kilometers. And endemic count is pretty high. Officially, there are 29 endemics. That would be recognition from the Clements. But obviously, there are a number of authors that recognize other endemics. So many would say that there are 30 plus endemics. All right. Now, obviously, Taiwan is an island. So it would make sense to talk about the coastal areas and the lowlands and the wetlands first. All right. Now, if we had to look at the number of species, this is purely from the perspective of like waders, ducks, gulls. We're excluding the pelagic birds, the raptors, and some of the passerines. We're looking at about 228 species. Obviously, if we included the others, it would, like the passerines and things like that, would be considerably higher. All right. I'm going to start off and I'm going to focus a lot on kind of the central Taiwan area. So that's where I live and that's where I do most of my birding. Okay, I'm going to look at Aogu Wetlands Forest Park. All right. Aogu is an IBA and it's important for black-faced spoonbill, Saunders's gull, and great cormorant. It's located in Chiayi County, and in the map you can see where that is. And it's about 1,400 hectares. Over 220 species have been recorded, 22 plus protected species. Other birds of note that turn up from time to time are Chinese egret, greater spotted eagle. It's a great place for osprey, black stork, oriental stork. The ducks and geese are always good. Get special ducks like falcated, bears sometimes. All right, if we have a quick look at the map of Aogu, it's actually a lot of it is reclaimed land that originally was used for sugar farming. Now it's all been left and it's become a forest park. And you can see that there's agricultural lands as well as wetlands. All right, the star of the show there is the black-faced spoonbills. Taiwan is very, very important for wintering black-faced spoonbills. And fortunately, over the last 2 decades, numbers have recovered quite a bit. But Aogu is a place that, particularly in winter, you can see black-faced spoonbills. Generally, in the summer, there are a couple of remaining birds. So even in summertime, it generally is possible to see, at least see a spoonbill. But generally, it's winter time. All right. Now, in that general area, which is the Southwest Coast National Scenic Area, there are a number of other wetlands that are worth visiting. Yunlin County, there'd be the Kohu and the Chenlong wetlands. In Chiayi, apart from Aogu, another good place to go to is Budai salt pans. And in Tainan, mainly the Chigu area and adjoining wetlands. All of these are great wetland areas on the coast to see a lot of wintering migrants. All right. Also, in that general area, slightly inland, worth noting, would be the Pheasant-tailed Jacana Ecological Education Center, which is a protected area and sanctuary for the Pheasant-tailed Jacana, which is easy access, easy to get to. And it's not just the Jacana. One often sees a lot of other good waders and water birds and ducks in that area. Also, around the sanctuary in the adjoining fields, it's a very good location for the endemic race of common pheasant. All right, let's move a little bit north, but still in kind of southwestern Taiwan. Yunlin County, Hubin Village. This is an area of low elevation forest, and it has a birder-friendly establishment there that's well known, which is the Fairy Pitta Cafe. And as its name says, this is the home of the Fairy Pitta. Fairy Pitta are found in that area from late April through to early July. They remain longer, probably into September and October, but after July, they become incredibly secretive and are very, very difficult to see. So if you're looking to see Fairy Pitta, generally the best times would be late April, March, June. Early July, you've got a reasonable chance. All right. Other birds that are found in that area that might be of interest, the Malayan night heron, Taiwan bamboo partridge, which is an endemic, Taiwan barbet, also one of our endemic species, the rice fields and scrub adjoining the forest, long-tailed shrike, the black-naped monarch, bronze drongo. It's also a fairly good location for maroon oriole, a good site for collared finchbill, also a good location for collared scops owl, also mountain scops owl, also quite easy to see there. Great place for crested serpent eagle. If you come in about March, you'll see them courting, and they have pretty spectacular courtships. Then also a good place for Savannah nightjar, but these days in cities in central Taiwan, it's pretty easy to see a nightjar. They're quite vocal, and you just got to look outside at night. All right, let's move on. Okay, Taiwan has its mountains, and its mountains are really spectacular. And there are a lot of locations in the mountains. These are just a few that I enjoy visiting, and that's Daxishan Forest, the Alishan Forest, Yushan National Park, Shito Forest, the Shabishan Trails, and on the other side, on the eastern side, Fushan Botanical Gardens. All right. Most of this birding takes place between 1,000 and about 3,500 meters. Let's see what you can see. All right. I suppose for our mountains, there are two pheasants that are quite iconic, that are both endemic. The first is the swinhoe's pheasant, which is generally found at lower to mid-elevation, and that's followed by the Mikado pheasant, which is generally found at higher elevations. Both of these pheasants are, Mikado is probably the easier to see if you go to specific locations like Daxishan or Yushan National Park. The swinhoe as well, not that difficult to see in places like the road up to Daxishan, Fushan Botanical Gardens, Shabishan Trails. All right. Woodpeckers, gray-capped. Taiwan has three native woodpeckers. All right. White-bellied pigeons, also quite common up there. In summertime, we get oriental cuckoo, black bulbul. Black bulbul plays quite an important part in indigenous Aboriginal culture. Some of the Aboriginal tribes believe that the black bulbul was the bird that brought them fire. Real cutie, black-throated tit, greenback tit, another endemic, the Taiwan yellow tit, snowy-browed flycatcher, another endemic, Taiwan whistling thrush, Taiwan thrush. This one's can be quite elusive. A lot of birders, when they come out, this is the one that this is the endemic that often gives them a hard time. Places where it's we have a reasonable chance of seeing it, probably, I would say, Dashe-shan and the Shabi-shan North Trail. Generally, one can see it there. White thrush gets quite confusing, very similar. Now it's been split. There's also scaly thrush, but whites is the more common. Morrison's fulvetta. This was great cheek fulvetta, but now Taiwan's got the nominate, which is endemic, and so it's generally referred to as Morrison's fulvetta. This is probably the predominant flocking species in the mountain forests of Taiwan. Again, this is also a very, very important bird for Aboriginals like the Sadiq, which basically the movements of the fulvetta dictated how they would hunt and what they would do. So a very important bird in indigenous culture here. Taiwan Yohina, quite easy to see. Generally, that goes from pretty much about 800 meters all the way through to about 2,500 meters. So one of the more dominant species. Little forktail, it's quite a cutie. Get it on the clear mountain streams. Generally not that difficult to see. Also accompanying the forktails, very often you'll see the plumbeous redstart, which is also quite a pretty bird. And if the streams are clear, and quite often brown dipper, you can also see along the streams. All right, another endemic, the Taiwan scimitar babbler, one of two endemic scimitar babblers. The other is the black necklace scimitar babbler. Black necklace is more difficult to see. It has a far larger territory than the Taiwan scimitar babblers. Taiwan scimitar babblers are quite easy. The black necklace generally takes a little bit more work. Then Steers Kickler, also one of the more common endemics in the mountains. White-eared sibia. The call of the white-eared sibia, particularly in summer, is very, very noticeable in the mountains. I always think countries have like a bird call that would almost in some ways be one could describe as perhaps like a national bird call. If I had to think of my native South Africa, it would be the African fish eagle. In Taiwan, particularly in the mountains, I would say that call would be the white-eared sibia. It has this very beautiful, melodious, haunting call that one always hears in the mountains. Then another interesting one be the Taiwan bowing. Taiwan bowing, not that difficult to see, but at times one does have to work for it. A pretty safe location to see Taiwan bowing quite easily is Shito Forest. Dashe-shan is always good, and Ali-shan. But Shito generally, even around the tea room, they're there. Quite often you'll see people, when people finish their lunch, they'll come in and with their kicklers and pick up crumbs and things like that. Okay, moving to slightly higher elevations. The white-whiskered laughing thrush, one of 4 endemic laughing thrush to Taiwan. The other one being others being the Taiwan huamei, rusty laughing thrush, and rufous crowned. The white-whiskered is found at higher elevations, generally over 2,000 meters. So when you get into kind of like the higher elevation birding, this is the laughing thrush that you see. Generally, it's a pretty approachable species, and one can get quite close to it. Other higher elevation species are the grey-headed bullfinch, which many authors consider as a full endemic species. The other native bullfinch to Taiwan is brown bullfinch. Then, real pretty, the Taiwan rosefinch, also found at those higher elevations. Huanshan's a good location for this. Tatajia in Yushan National Park as well. The male is that lovely kind of like dark claret color, and the female is a drab brown. Generally, they are particularly up in the Huanshan area. They're quite approachable and easy to see, even around the car park. Another bird that one often sees up in Huanshan around the car park is Alpine Ascenta. This is one of our looks quite different to the Ascentas one sees in Europe. Far more of a kind of like more of a darker reddishy belly. Also quite easy to see. If you go climbing in the kind of like over about 3,400 meters, one sees them. But I would say the location to see them generally would be the car park at top of the road, Huanshan, which is at 3,275 meters. All right, Taipei area. Okay, Taipei is, if one's visiting Taipei, there's several places that one can go to quite easily on public transport. An example would be the Guandu Nature Park. Kind of get on the MRT and just bird yourself. Also, if one's going to the Taipei area, an important endemic that's fairly easy to see in that location is the Formosan blue magpie. There's many places where you can see it in that area, but notable would be Wulai is a good location to see it, as well as Yangmingshan National Park. Both of these are good locations to see the blue magpie. All right. Also, if you're up there, be aware that there's Yelio Geopark. Taiwan is situated right bang in the East Asian Oceanic Flyway, and Yelio is a cape that protrudes out into the ocean, and it's a significant migrant trap. So if you're looking for migrants and particularly vagrants, this is the place to go. Lots of very interesting and special birds to be spotted here during migration season. All right. Other migrations that are important would be our raptor migrations. Lots and lots of raptors funnel through Taiwan during the spring and fall migrations. Okay, Kending National Park in southern Taiwan in September and October. That's a great place to see the raptors as they head down to the Philippines and beyond. In Kending National Park, one generally sees them in the morning in Sheding Nature Park, and in the evenings or late afternoon, one goes through to Manzhou. Generally, with the migrating raptors, your high numbers are grey-faced buzzard, Chinese sparrowhawk, lesser numbers of oriental honey buzzard, and other raptors like Japanese sparrowhawk. I think if I recall correctly, Kending National Park has recorded 26 diurnal raptors migrating through the park. Numbers migrating through can be extremely high. The numbers of like 50,000 plus in a single day. Because of the nature of southern Taiwan, it's a funnel. So one can see really significant large flocks of these raptors. So it clearly is one of the world's like foremost raptor watching locations. So this is if you're in Taiwan in the fall or in the spring, is well worth going to see. Also, in March and April, in kind of central West Taiwan, in Changhua, which is actually very, very close to the Baglashan, very, very close to the HSR station in Taichung. That's also a very important location, particularly for grey-faced buzzards moving through. All right, if you were down in Kending National Park to see raptors, you also would be in the right location to see one of Taiwan's other endemics, which is the Stein's bulbul, also known as Taiwan bulbul. This is found in eastern Taiwan and right down into the far south. Stein's bulbul is under considerable pressure. It's hybridizing with the more common light-vented bulbul, which is basically dominant over about 2/3 of the island, and typically the central mountain range kept the two species apart. But now with trapping and I suppose development and things like that, one's finding that the light-vented is moving into the traditional locations of the Stein's, and there's significant hybridization going on. But it's an interesting bird to see and relatively easy to see on the east coast and down into Kending. All right, something else to mention is obviously Taiwan has is the main island, but there are several other little islands and archipelagos around Taiwan, and many of these have interesting birds. Off kind of like southeastern Taiwan, there are two islands. There's Orchid Island, also known as Lanyu, which is a good location for elegant Scots owl. And nearby, there's also Green Island, which is a good location for brown-eared bulbul. Brown-eared bulbul, while it's quite dominant in Japan and Korea, in Taiwan it isn't. Light-vented bulbul is the dominant one, but on the offshore islands, the brown-eared bulbul tends to be the dominant species. Then in the Taiwan Strait, there's Jinmen, which is very good in summer for the blue-tailed bee-eaters. Also, it gives you the opportunity to see many birds that are more common on the Asian mainland, as well as it's a great location in winter for migrants and wintering birds. Then kind of a little bit north of Jinmen is the Matsu Islands, which Matsu is famous for the Chinese crested tern. The Chinese crested tern was a bird that was believed to have been extinct, and it hadn't been seen from, I think the last word, Shandong, in 1936, if I recall. And in 2000, they were rediscovered, and small breeding population in Matsu. So this is a critically endangered bird, and Matsu in the summer is one can go out and take a tour boat and go out to some of the tern colonies. You're not allowed to go onto them, but from the boat, one can observe the terns, and if you're lucky, you might be able to spot a Chinese crested tern. Then also in the middle of the Taiwan Strait, the Penghu Archipelago, which is a great location for migrating birds during spring and fall. All right. Now, something else that Taiwan enjoys is birdathons. And there are a number of birdathons in Taiwan, but the premier one is the Taiwan Birdathon. And that's been held since 2012. It's a 24-hour birding marathon, and it's held down in southwestern Taiwan, in the area of like Tainan, Chiayi, and Yunlin. This year, it is going to take place, and it's on the Saturday the 5th and Sunday the 6th of December. So I realize that we're in the midst of a COVID pandemic, but Taiwan has weathered COVID pretty well, and so the plan is to still hopefully go ahead and have that in December, and depending on I suppose the COVID situation, international visitors may well be able to attend. Certainly, if COVID puts a stop to it this year, it's something to consider for future years. All right. Teams are made up of 3 to 4 members, and both local and international teams. It's used as a winter bird count. The teams use eBird, and everything that they record goes directly into eBird, and so it kind of works as doubles as a winter bird survey. The person to contact for the Taiwan Birdathon is Victor Yu at Ecotourism Taiwan, and it's really a great way to do birding. If one looks at the highest winning team total was back in 2013, 215 species seen. The average winning total is 165. The highest endemic count was 29 endemics out of 22. 22 endemics out of 29. So if one is looking at coming for some like really spirited, quick birding in Taiwan, the Taiwan Birdathon does offer that. I've participated in all the Taiwan Birdathons. The last one last year, my team, which is Wagtails, picked up the 3rd place for the Bronze Award. Another year we did come 2nd. It's really a great way to get some good birding in, and you're going to see a pretty decent number of birds. You consider that the average winning total is 165. Most of the teams participating are going to be seeing in excess of 100 birds. All right. Also, some Taiwan birding companies and birding guides. As I mentioned, I'm not affiliated to any of these, and I myself am not a birding guide, but I am on Birding Pal, and so sometimes for free, people will contact me, and I'll sometimes take them birding locally. But just some of the birding companies operating Taiwan is Taiwan Bird Guide, Barking Deer Adventures, Tropical Birding, Go Birding in Taiwan. Then for individual guides, probably best would be to contact Ecotourism Taiwan, and they can put you in contact with individual guides. All right, I think that's it from me. I'd like to thank Victor, Mike, and Andrew from the Asian Bird Fair for giving me the opportunity to talk. Also to acknowledge the help that I received with photos. So Victor kindly gave me some photos and organized other photos for me. Also Richard Yu, Dr. Liu, Meifeng Liao, and a few that I used from Wikimedia Commons. All right, Q&A. Any questions?
All right, thank you, Mark. Thank you very much. Really an excellent presentation.
Thank you.
You told almost everything. So, ladies and gentlemen, any question? Well, Taiwan is not a big island, but so many things to see here.
Yeah, it's exciting birding. Certainly in the
What's the best month to go to Taiwan, or the best moment of the year?
Taiwan's good basically all year round. I would say if you're looking for we get more winter migrants than we do summer migrants. So probably October through to March would be the best time. November, December, good. But then again, I mean, if you came in spring or the fall, you've got the raptors, you still got migration, and summer always good, but Taiwan's pretty hot in the summer. So unless there's something like really specific that you wanted to see in the summer, perhaps I would say June, July, August would be the months that I would avoid. Apart from that, and the other thing to remember is the Lunar New Year, which is generally sometime in January, mid-January to mid-February. Try and avoid actually coming out over the Lunar New Year because the places will be packed. Other than that, yeah.
Yep. Mark, please turn up your PowerPoint, please. Then we can see everybody.
Okay.
Thank you.
Oh, Michaeli has a question.
Okay.
Michaeli?
You just stop sharing.
Hi. Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Oh, cool.
Okay,
Hi.
thank you.
My question is, what's a good length of time to have a bird tour in Taiwan? Like, how long will it take us to cover the country?
All right. You could, let's say, anything from a week to 3 weeks if you really wanted to go everywhere. But to be honest, like you can do a lot in 2 or 3 days. But a week would be a week to 10 days would give you some, like you'd get to see a lot. It would give you the chance to kind of double up on a few of the more difficult birds, which you'd probably have a chance of running into them in other locations. Whereas if you did it in 2 or 3 days, it would be kind of do or die.
Okay.
Or let me put it this way: if we want to see all the endemics, how long do we need?
Say 10 days.
All right.
I would say, yeah. But I mean, on the Taiwan Birdathon, groups are seeing 22 endemics in 24 hours. Yeah. So it's I'd say 8 to 10 days would be very safe.
Okay.
Yeah. Actually, we don't need a long time to sit in Taiwan. Of course, it will stay long enough. You can see many things here, but 10 to 12 days is just enough to see most of the birds.
Yeah.
Especially endemics.
Yeah, I would say so. And you'd have a pretty decent total. I think if you're doing serious birding over 10 days, you can look at 200 plus birds easily.
Well, excellent.
Yeah.
Any more questions?
Hi everyone. I
Hi.
have a question.
Yeah.
What are the? Thank you very much for an excellent presentation.
Thank you.
My question is, what are the chances for the mountain scopes out and the 2 pheasants you mentioned? And what are the best times to visit?
Okay. The mountain scops owl generally it's not, in some ways it's not that sought after. So if one was, if you're going to say to me mountain scops owl, I could take you to, just because I live very close to Huben, and I would say that we probably have on a single evening pretty much a 90+% chance of seeing it.
Wow. Wow,
So
that's amazing.
it's the dominant owl in the in the mountains. So in a lot of if you at night you are always going to hear mountain scops owl calling.
Wow.
And it's just a case of following those calls. A place like in Huben, you just visit. They're calling around the village. You kind of just listen and take a flashlight and go look for it. The pheasants, at the right location, pretty good chance of seeing them. There's a location that I visit. It's kind of like it's a rather secluded trail, but quite accessible. Yushan National Park, and I would say on that trail, I have 100% record of seeing Mikado pheasant.
Wow, very promising.
So on other locations like Dasheshan, which is probably the big location that people go to look for Mikado pheasant. I don't know, Victor, what would you say? 80%?
Well, because in the last few years, there's photographers. Then they feed the birds constantly, so you can see them very easy. Now, well, yes, 75 to 80, yes.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
The reason why I'm asking this is because we also get.
Sorry, we lost you.
Victor, they know because they've been in Bhutan, and it's if you go to a mid-temperate forest, you will hear them everywhere. But this is a bird that still remains a lifer for me. So I am losing hope in seeing one in Bhutan, so I have to find a best place to see this.
Chusang, you just need to go on a bird tour with Victor, and then you'll find it.
Yeah.
I'll get hold of him.
And
again,
the Mikado pheasant.
Another question, please.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, go on. Sorry.
Yes.
Oh, the Mikado pheasant is quite an interesting one because it's, as far as I know, it's the only bird that's been described from two tail feathers. When Walter Goodfellow, who is the British ornithologist that I suppose discovered it, obviously to the local people, they knew about it for a long time. But anyway, he when he was up in the central mountains in Taiwan, on the final day of his trip up into the mountains, was in Taiwan, the mountains were pretty inaccessible. So because of the dangers of going into the mountains and things, Taiwan's interior was only really explored at the beginning of the 20th century. So when Goodfellow went up there, he, on his final day, he encountered a porter with two pheasant feathers in his headdress. And Goodfellow knew a lot about pheasants, so he immediately recognized them as these feathers are not known. And so he managed to get the feathers. So the actual original description of the species actually revolved around two feathers. On a later trip, he managed to secure some specimens. So it's quite a special bird. In Taiwan, it's kind of seen as the, I suppose, like the emperor of the heavens, because it lives up in the clouds above the sea of clouds, and so it's quite a special bird.
Well, it is a special. Pheasants are very special everywhere.
Yeah.
You're right. Yeah, exactly.
And
Swinhoes?
another question.
Yeah.
And the Lucicla you mentioned about, is this the only one you get in Taiwan?
Yes. Yeah. It's that's not a difficult bird to see. If you go into the kind of, once you start getting into the mountains, as soon as you're in the right habitat, you see them. They're very, very vocal. They sometimes can be difficult to get your binoculars onto them because they can move around a lot. But generally, they're not difficult to see. Very, very vocal. And then to go back to the pheasants, the Swinhoes pheasant, also not that difficult. I think, Victor, what would you say? Fushan Botanical Gardens? That's pretty much guaranteed.
Lucicla?
For Swinhoes pheasant.
Well, actually, Dashian is the best place.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. There's Dashian, and then also Shabi North Trail. I would say Shabi North Trail, probably about 80 to 90% chance.
Yeah, well, actually, recent years in suburban areas like Taipei, it's easy to see them.
Yeah.
No, people protect them, these days.
Yeah.
So they're not afraid of people. You just walk around the trail, pretty easy to see.
Yeah.
Very promising. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Next trip, Taiwan.
Yes.
So, in general, would you say the birds in Taiwan are not very scared? Like it's easy to see them?
I'd say they're easy to see in the sense of locations are pretty easy to get into.
Okay.
You can basically drive up into good habitat, and then if you're not birding from the road, it's like a short walk into habitat. It's not that difficult. Look, some birds are particularly skittish. But and for instance, some of the I'm trying to think, like the cupwing, the shortwing, they can be frustrating in the sense that they're very vocal, and you can hear them calling from the undergrowth, like from 1 or 2 meters away. But you try and see that little brown bird in all that grass. Yeah.
That's
but
difficult.
I'd say Taiwan is, compared to a lot of other locations, it's pretty easy birding.
Okay.
And
then, and Johnny, you have a question, right? Johnny, please go ahead.
Good to see you, everyone. How are you doing over there?
Good. Well, thanks to you, Johnny.
Yeah, these botanical gardens you've just mentioned. How far is it from Chai to get to it?
How far from Jai to get the pheasants?
The botanical garden.
The Fushan Botanical Gardens on the quite a long way from Jai. Fushan is in Yilan, which is like northeast Taiwan, and Jai is kind of southwest. But for both pheasants, Jai is good. The number of locations, I'm just trying to think, like Alishan, Yushan National Park. So from Jai, pretty easy to do the pheasants.
Okay, I'm asking because when I come for the bird fair to organize a trip before I come back to go for some birding and try to find some of these birds.
Yeah, it's if you're there for the birdathon and you in Jai, the mountains are not far. So you're in the right location, and if I live in that area, and if I'm free, just give me a shout, and I can try help you. It's it's not.
We will try to plan for it as I plan for the bird fair. Yeah. So thanks very much.
You're welcome.
And Luan mentioned that we also can see Mikado pheasant in Alishan.
Yeah. That's right. And also the road out of Alishan to Tataja Yushan National Park, one often sees the Mikado pheasant on the side of the road. And from in Alishan, there's a trail that follows an old railway track. And I know along that railway track, one often sees the Mikado pheasants. So it's not difficult to see in Alishan.
And just by the roadside.
Yeah.
You don't have to hit the trail, deep. No, not necessary.
Mm-hmm.
If one starts to hit the trails, one often can encounter like other wildlife. It's start to see muntjac, sandbar deer. So it's quite interesting. I suppose something else that if one's birding on your own or with a small group, kind of like if you're just trying to rough it and things like that, it's camping. It's also camping's quite a good option as well.
There are some people here, they love camping.
Yeah, I
know that, like Rajendra, like Chibzang, they always asking questions about camping, right?
Camping. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a real rule of nature.
Yeah, Taiwan's pretty good for that. There's great hiking in Taiwan. The mountains are fantastic, and it's there's a lot of trails that one can if you do the trail, you just camp on the trail, and the same and it's the birding is always good. And I suppose camping often is, a lot of the mammals are nocturnal, and generally on camping trips, that's where I often see good mammals. And also because when you're camping, it positions you on a good place in the trail, and so kind of when you wake up in the morning, you often come across mammals as well on the trail.
All right.
Yeah.
If we don't have any more questions, then we must say have a nice day, guys. So thank you very much again, Mark.
Thank you, Victor.
We learned a lot from you. Okay, so before we go, now we're going to take a group photo, just as usual, right? So the trick is that look at the camera, smile, and don't move. Okay, those who hide behind the screen, Andy, I don't see you, Andy. Andy, are you
Maybe
with us?
the shy one today.
Okay.
Wow, Andrew.
All right, ready? Look at the camera and smile. 3, 2, 1, go.
Hey, Andy, come here.
Thank you very much. Okay.
Thank you.
Hey, our speaker next week.
Andrew looks like a monster. It's like a horror movie. It was the monster from the deep. Oh, Andrew!
No,
Howling, my God.
I'm doing a survey on birds, and owls, with some friends from the Wild Bird Club.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, these are the Wild Bird Club members. You see all of them?
And
these
we have
suspicious people.
Andy, that's Andy.
Sylvia with us. Hi, Sylvia. Sylvia is the director of Taiwan Tourism Office in London.
Wow. Mhm.
So if you visit London, well, you must pay her a visit. Okay. Right. Thank you much. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We'll see you
Thank you.
next
Thank you
Friday.
very much.
Same time here. Thank you for supporting. Okay. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.